Welcome back to the Picture This podcast. My guest today is a passionate children's author known for really imaginative storytelling and capturing young readers with a focus on inspiring creativity, a love for books. My guest's books encourage children to explore their imagination as well as the text. Very much like to introduce Soul.
Hey, how you doing?
So, Nick, you and I met years ago when I was teaching a class on out of the box picture books. And your manuscript from that class got made into a book. Can you tell us just a little bit about what it was like for me to be a teacher and what your publication process was like? Like, how was that different than your regular teaching?
Well, it's interesting. You as a teacher were fantastic. I think we were taking at that time I was taking these classes at the Writing Barn, and I was addicted to all these classes. So anytime a class that came up, I was just like signing up for everything. And then when your class came up, I was like, this is perfect for what I've been working on. And it was a short, like little story, only about 12 pages. And we needed to be 32 to 40 pages, and so I needed a way to kind of branch that out. And I thought you were going to be a fantastic teacher for that. And you turned out to be amazing. You gave me the guidance I needed. So the book was called The Staring Contest. It came about was I had been writing a story and trying to sell it at these conferences, but people were saying it was like, you seem very happy, like a happy person. And this book is kind of like a very sad book, which actually it got published. It was my second book, and we can talk about that. But so they were like, go write something funny. And I was like, what? Like I had to leave in the middle. And I was like, so I went outside for 10 minutes and I sat and I thought like, I love a book with no pictures. And I was like, that was like a guiding point. I wanted something interactive, something that was going to be fun. And I kept thinking, what are some games kids play? And the staring contest came up, and I was like, well, what would be funny if you had a staring contest with a book and you just had to read it without blinking. And so that's where kind of the genesis of it came. And then being in your class was fantastic because I learned how to develop it, how to take it further. Where do we do the twists and turns? Where do we get that page turn? Where do we get the kids to buy in a little bit more? And because of that, I was able to get it actually up to 40 pages. And it was fantastic. And I just loved being there. And it was an interesting as far as publishing goes, because there's a traditional way where you sent it into agents, and then the agent will sell it to a publisher, and hopefully that comes around. But this one, for the Writing Barn, they'd have these conferences, and you get to go on Saturdays and just share. And there was an editor at Peter Popper Press, and she was in the audience, and she was going for classes to become an author, but she really loved it. And she said, I really like that. And I had sketched stuff out because, it's very metafiction, and I wanted people to kind of get an idea of what I'm looking for. And I remember her going, we want you to do the pictures. And I'm like, I'm not an illustrator. I'm an author. I can't do these. She said, no, we want you to do it. And so when I have author visits about it, I talk with kids. I was like, I could have a fixed mindset and say, no, I can't do it, and none of my books would ever come out. Or I could have a growth mindset, and that's what I had. I said, you know what? Sure, I could do it. And then I worked my butt off for 2 weeks trying to learn Adobe and all this other stuff. And so it was an untraditional way of getting it published, but I'm happy it came out.
The power of yes, right? There's a thing that they do in acting when, what the hell is it called? It's not ad lib.
Yeah, I know what you. Now you got me.
Yeah, it pooped out of my head. Yeah, here you go. It's late at night, and Nick and Adam's brains are done for the day.
I know everybody who does these.
Yes, and it basically you say yes, but so you never say no. You say
yes.
You say yes and, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I will figure out how to draw. Yes, and I will figure out Adobe. And you just keep going down this path of adding to and adding to and adding to. And I think that's an amazing way to create a story. And it's, God damn, it was just in my head again. Whose line is it anyway? That's the thing.
It starts with an I, and I know it, and I can't get it. And I can't put it out there. I lost the word as well.
Improvisation.
Oh my Thank God, you.
We're so stupid.
But if we share one brain, we can figure it out.
If we share one thing, this is what's really going to make people listen to my pods is all us sitting here forgetting the word improvisation.
I'm just screaming at the going, it's improvisation.
Anyway, improvisation, yes, and becomes a great classroom activity as well. for writing or anything creative that you're doing in the classroom. And you can do it with drawings. You draw something and then you pass it to the person next to you and they add to your drawing. They can't cross anything out, they can't delete anything, but they have to add to it and take it in a new and different direction. I love that as an activity.
Yeah, I've done that with stories too. You start a story, 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, you pass it to somebody else. You read it, and then you just have to keep going with their story. And you can take it any way you want, but it's a really fun thing. You can do it at groups of 4, and it's amazing.
So we're already into talking about activities for the classroom. You are finishing the last year of teaching fourth grade, and you said you're going to be moving on to fifth grade. Can you tell me a little bit about how you use books in your classroom now, picture books in your classroom now? And I know you brought a stack of some of your favorites. Just go over some of the fun stuff that you do now and then just mention a little bit about what you're looking forward to as well.
Yeah, I'm finishing my 25th year as a fourth grade teacher, and so along that path, I was like thinking about like I love bringing picture books in. I love bringing picture books in as a teacher because it's fast. You can do quick books as introducing anything you want. There's picture books out there for every single thing. So I talk about it with fourth grade, but third grade, kinder, first, fifth. But I even would push high school. I push middle school. If you start a lesson, let's say you're doing the American Revolution, you can pick a picture book on American Revolution. And even if those kids are older, they're still going to be enthralled. And it's a great way to introduce whatever topic you're working on. For me, at the beginning of the year, I'm spending all of my time working on like our family community within the classroom. And I'm also working on growth mindset, because if I can get everybody to work along really well, and then everybody believe that they can do it, not that they can do it right now, they can't do it yet, but they can get there at some point as long as we're trying, then it's a growth mindset. Then the rest of my year is easy, because these kids are like, okay, I'm not getting 100 right now, but I got a 40 last week. Today I got a 50. Next week I get a 55, and I'm going up, and that's all I care about. And so day one, I'm introducing books like All Are Welcome. I want to make sure that everybody in the classroom knows everyone's welcome.
It's Alexandra was the publisher, the editor for my first book. She's my agent now. So they have a new one coming out. Suzanne just finished the art for it. I can't wait to see it. Such a good book.
And this is one of my go-tos. And there's a ton of new ones. So I struggle all the time too. Like another one that I love is The Invisible Boy is another great one. I don't know if you know this one, or The Rabbit Listens. So these are books I'm reading at the beginning, because we're talking about, sometimes some kids are going to be very loud and get a lot of attention, and some kids aren't. Some kids are going to feel left out, and how do we include people? Sometimes we're going to have some emotions, and how do we deal with those emotions? With The Rabbit Listen, there's lots of different ways to deal with it, and everyone's different in our classroom. So let's give them that space to find that out. I mean, if I'm going to tout myself, I'm pushing The Color Collector. It was the second book I had published, but it's basically about a little boy who befriends a girl who has an interesting hobby of collecting bits of color, and they find out what they do with it. And the reason I school, I was the new kid. I didn't have any friends, and I desperately wanted somebody to say hello, and somebody actually did, and we became friends as time went on. And he was a popular kid, but because of his kindness, my whole life changed. And I talked to kids about how one little word, hello, can change someone's entire life, and how our words have power. Because a lot of times these kids don't feel like they get any control over their life. They have to do what their teachers say. They have to do what their parents said. And I'm telling them they have a ton of power to change how somebody's day is either horrible or fantastic. And it can be as simple as a little word.
Like that, your inclusiveness is so broad in terms of how you're relating to your students. I mean, after 25 years, I'm sure you've got a pretty broad idea of what you're going to find in your classroom. As an author, do you bring that same kind of mentality to your stories? Are you looking to write for a marginalized group in your classroom, the quiet kids, or the kid who does collect something that's a little bit more unique and different?
For me, I don't think I ever try to write towards a group. It really is something from what can you tap into your childhood, and what can you kind of bring forth and write about? Because I think really good stories come from within, and then they get developed. And so And when they get developed, then it becomes something broader. I was the new kid at school and I didn't have a lot of friends. And that's where the color collector came out. My family's from Brownsville, but I'm from Austin. And it's this blend of like, who am I? Where do I fit in? And so that's where my town, muy pueblo came through. The littlest grito, I spent my entire life here in the grito, which is that Mexican yell that. And so I grew up. And so I was like, oh, I want to write a book about that. I want to write a book about finding your voice. But the main character in that's a little girl. So I always tap in first to a story of like something from my childhood, and then I develop it to be as inclusive as possible, but really told from a point of view that I bring.
Hybrid is kind of it sounds like you learned something from my lessons. Hybrid is the space that I try to live in. Have you seen There Was a Hole? It's my newest picture book. It's called There Was a Hole, right here. I did this. The illustrations are by Carrie O'Neill. The main character, this little girl here, Lily, has a hole.
Yeah.
I never talk about why or what the hole is. I leave clues for what it could be, but something's happened, something's changed, and she has a hole, and it keeps growing, and it's kind of preventing her from being able to do anything, and her dad's trying to help, and nothing's working until somebody reaches out to her at school.
Yeah.
And says, I have a hole too. Because when you really think about it, everyone has a hole. Everyone is missing something or has lost something, whether it's your favorite stuffed animal or a pet or a family member or something, your book, right? You had a book that you loved and your parents took it back to the library. It could be anything. But we've all something. So we all have that, and it needs to be patched. Things need to happen. And I tried to combine those two ideas, right? So you have that friendship thing, and you have somebody who needs a friend, but is just so lost they can't even accept it, right? And how does that happen? How do you marry those ideas? So when you're presenting picture book to your class and you're trying to marry the idea of that picture book to your curriculum, what are some of the tricks that you use or some of the thought processes you go to tie those things together?
Well, first of all, I think I need to check out the book because I love that idea, and I love the fact that it is open, because that, as a teacher, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, I'll read that book and I'm like instantly think about the hole that I have, but another student might read that book and then they think about the hole that they have. And so it's a way to be like, okay, well, this is where I'm feeling, or this is how I have this feeling. And so they can connect to that. And so I love that, like, ambiguity almost, where it's like, there's a story here, but this story could be your story. So how do you fit into that? And I think that's genius of how you did that. As far as curriculum goes, like, we're set, like the teachers are set for what they're given as curriculum. And I've written curriculum for my district. I rarely follow the curriculum. I try to use it as a guideline.
More guidelines than rules.
And I'll be fair, the books have gotten better. I remember years ago, there were books that were not written by authors. There were books that were written by people writing just curriculum. And nothing was interesting. It was meant to fit. It was written around an objective rather than the objective to fit the story, like a story chosen.
Yeah. So the way that we learned, we're of an age, sort of. The way we were taught to read is apparently the wrong way to teach people to read, and they're still doing it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, for me, it's about interest. Like, I've had kids like in fourth grade, especially after the pandemic, non-readers. I started last year off with 6 kids who could not read. And by the end, it was only 2 kids. And, they had their issues that they had, the dyslexia as well. And so, it's really about where can I find that interest? And I think picture books are the way to grab their interest. And it's a way to grab it in quickly. You were talking earlier about, like, picture books can hit lots of different things at one time. And I can hit many objectives with many picture books. And it takes me 10 minutes to read a picture book. If I'm jumping into a curriculum piece, which I still bring in, but something from HMH or something, that's going to take a full week of reading and dissecting and breaking things down. And so I still believe, grab those picture books at the beginning of your unit. Grab those picture books when interest is starting to dip. Bring in a picture book. It always pulls them around. And then you start getting text-to-text connections. You get text-to-self connections. there's all these different connections those kids are trying to make. And that's what we're trying to do as educators. We're trying to scaffold. How do we build tons of knowledge? And I work in a Title I school. My kids don't go out a lot. My kids don't have an opportunity to travel. I remember going on a field trip and the doors closed on the elevator and they opened and the kids were gone. And my students were screaming like, oh, were they? Because they'd never been on an elevator before. They just saw a room where the doors closed and kids disappeared. And like, that was interesting. But so I have to build that. I have to bring that into them. I have to bring those worlds in. And the best and easiest way is to bring in your picture books. And so when I'm connecting curriculum, I'm thinking, what 2 or 3 picture books can I bring in right now? And I'm about to start 5th grade. I taught 5th grade 1 year, 17 years ago. This is going to be a new beast for me. I was on cruise control. And so I'm kind of excited, especially with history. What's going to be taught in like history and what picture books can I bring in that are going to make that really exciting? And then if we have to read some dry stuff, we still can connect those two together.
Well, that's such a great concept, especially with history. So I've been talking to a couple of people about nonfiction, and there are 2 types of nonfiction, right? There's narrative nonfiction where you have a story, and then there's nonlinear nonfiction where it's more fact-based kinds of things. And specifically with that, kids learn different ways. So if you're doing 5th grade around here, because I'm in Pennsylvania, very big on the whole Gettysburg thing in 5th grade. So 5th grade, they go through all that Civil War stuff. Then there's a trip to Gettysburg. So you're talking about Lincoln. Some kids need that story that says, here's how he grew up. Here's what, it shows a path. Other kids just want to know certain facts. Just give me the facts. Let me just get the bite-sized facts and move on. And that's the way that their brains work. So I like that you're introducing multiple picture books when you're trying to do your lesson. You're saying, all right, here's 1, here's 2, because people are going to come at this lesson differently each and every time. It's interesting. I have to think about that for the support materials that I'm putting out. If you're listening to this, please comment. Do you need more than 1 picture book example for some of these activities that I'm putting out, or is 1 picture book good enough and then you can jump from there? I don't want to give you too much. I don't want to use up all your time reading the names of picture books.
But I agree with it though. I think when you have lots of different kids, you have lots of different learners. And so everyone's going to learn a different way. And picture books are a great way to hit a lot of different learners. One might hit that linear, one might hit that nonlinear narrative. And that's fine, because whatever's going to grasp them and give them something to build on when you do get to the nitty gritty and the drier curriculum part of it, they're going to be able to jump on board because they have a netting that they can build off.
So because you're in the classroom every day and you're surrounded by educators, what are some of the actionable tips that you've seen other people do that you've brought into your picture book curriculum in your own? Something that you saw, oh my God, Mrs. Smith was doing this and, we did that. And, Mr. Juarez was over there doing that thing. And I brought that in. So what are some of those like little tips that you've incorporated?
Well, I will speak on a couple of different things for this. So for my books, I started actually going and using an outside curriculum writer for things because she's brilliant. It's Book Links LLC. But on my website, you'll find all these different activities. And she's added things from coding, comprehension, vocabulary, anything you could want. She creates these kits, and I put tons on there for free because, as a teacher, I want free. As a librarian, I want librarians to have activities that are free. And so a lot of these activities will last a whole week. So you take 1 picture book, but you go a deep dive into that. As far as the classroom goes, I've seen a lot of great teachers who, like, when we talk about Hispanic Heritage Month, I will start with The Little Escrito. That's my book that I had out, and we're talking about nonlinear narrative. It's about a little girl finding her voice, but it's all about shouting the grito that starts the 16 de Septembre, the Mexican Independence Day. And it comes down to the grito made Mexico. And so it's very interesting. Not a lot of people knew that. I didn't know that. And so I'll start with this, but then we'll break it down and we'll start doing, Afting Hope, Cesar Chavez. And like, these are the ones I have right now that I've been collecting. So I've got 16, 17, 18 books. And so what we'll do is we'll do these bio boxes where kids will each pick a different Hispanic heritage person. Some people love to do Selena and they love the music. And so then they'll do a timeline. So on one side of a box will a timeline. On another side of the box will be like an essay they wrote about their life, beginning, middle, end, something from their life. Another thing, what are they most known for? And like you have these boxes that you move around and they're supposed to be interactive in 3D, and these kids love creating them, and then they put them in the library and other kids get to move them and see them, and it's super interactive, and that's all done with picture book connecting. And I can't remember who I stole that from, but it was years ago, and it's amazing. As far as like bigger things, I use a lot of novels in my classroom too. So we'll do story walls. So I'll have a story wall and then I'll break it down. Who are my characters? But you can do this in picture books too. Who are my characters? What's the setting? What's the plot? What's the problem and the solution? What's a connection? What's a connection that you made to the book, or something that connected to your life or to another story you read? Vocabulary. And it's this visual representation of all these things we're trying to learn that go on this giant wall. And so those are just a few of the ways that I like to bring in picture books and novels into the classroom.
Fantastic. I love the cube idea. It's so cool. So I've taken on the challenge of trying to do chapter books, and
nice.
I'm trying to write a middle grade. My middle grade that I'm writing right now is 6th, 7th grade age, like the characters are, but it'd be the perfect book for your 5th graders because it's about that middle school experience, sort of, but it's so many words. Oh my God, picture books are so much better. Like you can read a picture book in 10 minutes, but I mean, it's so many words. They're so long.
I've written one middle grade and it's the editing, and I've never done anything with it because I hate, like, if you tell me picture book, like, we can edit pretty quick and I'll be like, okay, I'm on it. What do we got? Okay, I agree. Yes, I know. But this whole plot's gone. You have a hole here. You need to fix this, lose this chapter. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do it.
Yeah. Do you know what you're saying? Like it took me, so I have a book over here. It took me 3 years to write. It's got 400 words in it. It took me 3 years with all the revisions and everything else. Like this book that I'm writing right now is 45 to 60,000 words. It's gonna be the rest of my life writing this. And now, and like Robert Jordan wrote 7,000 word, 7,000 page books. Like, how do you have the time for that? Oh, good Lord.
Adriana Cuevas does the same thing. She's popping books out all the time. And I'm like, how do you do this?
It's the same way people learn differently. People write differently. Some people can just sit down and describe the world in very colorful, flowing language. And when I describe the world, I say it was cold. Like, you can fill in, it was cold. Fill in the rest in the picture, the little movie you had. Although recently, and not so recently, but my wife doesn't have that. Like the film that you see in your head when you're doing things, she doesn't have it. So I don't understand that, but I feel for everybody who doesn't constantly see a movie in their head because it makes things so much easier.
It's constant. And my wife is pretty much the same way. Like, my son wakes up sometimes and he's like, I have to do art. I have to, and she's like, I just don't have that part of me. Like she's like, do you want to watch some TV? He's like, no, I have to draw this thing. Like, he just has that. And I think I love it because it's that feeling of like, we go to sleep at night with movies just constantly keeping us up because we have to get it out on the paper or else we never get to sleep.
All right. So we're going to jump into the standard segments that I do. So I ask everybody to recommend a picture book. It can either be yours, it can be one that you truly love. We have shared a couple of them. You can go back to one of those. You can go with something different, but share a go-to book that you use in your lessons or that you reference if you're talking about your books at a conference or a school visit, something that you use to illustrate your points.
I mean, there are so many that I can kind of talk about. Like, for me right now, when I'm talking about, at the beginning of the year, I was talking about growth mindset. And so it's Peter Reynolds' Ish, the book, when you're talking about growth mindset. And it's this idea of living ishly, where it might not be a flower, but it's flower-ish. And this is such an easy book to read, but such a powerful book to read. when you're trying to talk to kids about growth mindset and understanding that nothing has to be perfect. And also there's value in the imperfections and people will still love that. So I think about that a lot. I bring in other ones because I really love talking about growth mindset because that's my beginning of the year to get stuff going. But Beautiful Oops is a fantastic book as well. It's this, hodgepodge of just, mess ups and mistakes that have been turned into beautiful things. And if you start the year off like that, you really get this sense of community where we can make mistakes, but as long as we can grow from those mistakes.
It's such a good message. So I have a high school senior right now, and he's in the process of finalizing his AP art final project, which is an installation. And his theme throughout the year has been the contrast of order and chaos and how those things butt heads against each other. And it really shows the difference and where he gets this from, in that I'm helping him do a bunch of the stuff, and my wife is helping him do a bunch of the stuff just to, when he needs an extra hand. And she's helping him clean everything up and make it look good. And if he tells me, no, it's fine with little bits of glue and whatever else on there, I'm like, that's what his theme is about, right?
Yeah.
And starting the school year off that way and sharing mistakes, or that it doesn't always have to be perfect. What's really important is you've put in an effort, right? If you're putting in a solid effort, I'll notice that, right? I will notice that you're putting in that effort, and that's going to be important in this classroom going forward. And Ish really captures that really well. And I love again, Nick showing up with multiple examples. It's great. It's great.
Well, and it's also the idea of and I tell my students this: you do not have to be better than anybody else in this world. You just have to be better than who you were yesterday. And that's what I try to talk to them about. It's like, I think, especially with social media, there's all this comparison. And I really want to get them to understand that, it's not about bettering yourself to be better than somebody else and to make other people feel less than. It's, are we growing? And are we growing in a positive way?
The next thing we're going to talk about is story sparks. When you see your students starting to kind of dip, and you mentioned this a little bit, sometimes you'll use a picture book to spark engagement. What are some other creative prompts that you use to give them like a little creative nudge?
Well, I'm going to give you two that are my go-to, and one from the beginning of the year, and the other one is, it's harder. I'll explain it as best I can, but I love it. And so the first one is called a Memoir heart. And I use this at the beginning of the year. It's basically a large heart that's been broken into sections. So you can make this yourself if you want to have 10 sections, 15 sections, however much, but it's about the whole page. And in every little square, you just tell the kids, I need you to draw 5 things. Draw anything that you might want to write about and draw a little picture. Don't color it. Don't do anything. Just draw pictures. And so it might be like, oh, our trip to the beach. Well, they might put waves and they might write beach. And they might over here, my dog Spot. Okay. And that's in another one. And down here it might be, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing it in front of them and modeling. And what we do is at the beginning of the year, they start to write these out. They'll go, okay, I'm going to write about, let's see, which one do I want to write about first? I'm going to write about Spot. And so then they'll write about my dog Spot he's my best friend. He's this much color, and they'll just write. I don't look for periods or capitals at the beginning of the year. I don't look for anything. I'm just getting them to write. And then we tag. They get up, they can say look or no look. If they say no look, we all put our heads down and nobody can look at them while they share. So they have that power. If they say look, they're like, yeah, you can look at me. That's fine. We look, and we T, tell them something we like. A, ask a question, and we G, give advice. And especially at the beginning of the year, we're just T, telling something we like. But once they've shared, then they're allowed to color. And so as time goes on, their heart becomes more and more colorful because they've shared more and more stories. And it's this really great way to prompt them to create. My friend Katie Peterson gave that to me years ago, and I don't know where she got it from, but it's phenomenal. So that's especially the beginning of the year.
Have you heard of kintsugi? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. The Japanese art of repairing broken
gold.
With gold.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that. This feels a little bit like that. And we're going right back to, there was a hole. When I originally tried to figure out how she was going to fix the hole, kintsugi was one of the concepts that I was trying to figure out how to incorporate. And I like the concept of taking something that's almost breaking it apart and putting it back together, which is not really what happens when you have a hole like that, right? You kind of patch, right? So patches became my thing, but your idea really kind of lends itself to that kintsugi, and I'm wondering if there's an activity I can build around that that combines those two things. So look for that in the notes below at my website or wherever, because I will be putting that together as a natural extension of what Nick just came up with. So that was one. Did you have a second one, or?
The second one, I'm gonna give it the simplest explanation I can. But basically, and I wrote my thesis on this in grad school, and now that was 20 years ago, and so I can't remember her name. But there was a professor that had started this thing, and they were called interest journals. And so the way I do interest journals is I get 15 to 20 journals, spiral journals, probably do about 5 more than the number of kids in your class. You spend one day having them make a list. What are you interested in? If you could write about anything, what would you be interested in? I like cars. I like movies. I like dad jokes. I like manga or whatever, right? And they make this big, huge list, and I do it at tables. And then I combine all the lists, and I get at least like 20 or so. Then on every journal, I write, this is a manga journal. This is a movie journal. And so we have a whole bunch. Then I leave the journals in the back on the ground, and they are allowed to grab whatever they want, and they can write, especially what they're interested in. And then if they're not sure what they want to write, they can read somebody else's. And so these journals become, it's almost like an online kind of chat room. They have to be appropriate. They have to be considerate, but they can write to other people. They can write their own. So it's like a regular journal, but sometimes it's a response journal. Sometimes it's a interest journal where they show their own interest. And it's this really awesome way to build classroom community. And I haven't done it in a while because it takes time, but I think I'm going to do it for 5th grade because I think it's a great way for them to be able to communicate and talk to each other.
And it's an awesome ender gift that they can get, because you can very easily digitize it all, and then everybody can take those journals home forever.
Yeah.
That, as you know, here's our book that we created.
Love it.
Yeah, very, very cool. I like that. Excellent. So the last thing, and we did also briefly talk about this, but you had mentioned pairing picture books with history lessons, or just talking about history lessons. Thinking about using a picture book, maybe not nonfiction, using other picture books to go with history. How would you think about that? Or how do you pair a much more narrative story with something that you're working on in history to amp everything up and make it interesting?
I mean, there's so many books, and this is where I'm kind of like struggling a bit right now, because I am shifting to 5th. So we moved from Texas history, where I'm at, to world history. And so I need to play around with the books like I'm looking for, like, now I'm blanking, like Tree of Hope, the 9/11, about the tree. That's a great book to read on that day, because especially for young ones, it's a way to dip their toes in without becoming too, it's still very narrative and very figurative, to where it's not so much talking about, the terrorism and the death that occurred on that day, but it is talking about the sadness and the theme and the mood of that day, so that can lead you into deeper talks, and talks that are a little bit more fact-based, without getting too heavy into the emotion, because it is a great way to tie with emotion, but then you can tie it into, factual information. My brain is thinking about novels like Number the Stars is a great narrative to bring in when you're talking about the Holocaust and about Germany as well. Dueling Words is a great thing to talk about Gettysburg and about Abraham Lincoln. And so there's ways to bring these things in. And so I don't want to speak as an expert right now, because I'm not there yet, but I hope to be. I hope to, every part of history that we're talking about, I hope to be able to bring in a picture book. And I also kind of want to buy some costumes and dress up like a pioneer. And like, I had a teacher in high school who did that, and I'm like, this would be cool. So I think I'm going to kind of blend those two things together for the next
I love
year.
it. I absolutely love it. Well, hopefully educators with some suggestions, librarians, get your 5th grade book lists out, and so help Nick out, and we'll get him some really good suggestions.
I would love it.
So Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me here. So many great things that we have talked about, and I can't wait to sit down and start editing this and putting together all the activities, the list of activities, and all the fun stuff that we talked about. But It's been great catching up with you. Is there anything else that you want to hit before we call it a night?
No, I mean, if there's educators and librarians, I love visiting schools. So please reach out. I would love to come to your school. I've got a lot of great books, and kids are my sweet spot. Like adults sometimes make me nervous, but kids have always been easy to talk to. So that's why I write to them.